Welcome to Behind the Scrubs Couch, where real stories, expert voices, trusted health conversations come together. Before we begin, please remember that this interview is for educational purposes only and does not replace professional medical advice. If you enjoy credible health content, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification to African Health Excellence. Now grab a seat. The conversation starts now. Welcome back to Behind the Scrubs Couch, where we go beyond the qualifications, titles, and achievements to meet the people behind healthcare. I'm your host, Sylvia Maseko-Mhlanga, and today we are joined by someone whose work is helping shape not only what we know about medicine, but also how the next generation of healthcare professionals is trained to use that knowledge. Professor Cordier is a full professor of pharmacology at the University of Pretoria, an accomplished researcher, educator, and health professions education specialist. His work ranges from investigating drug resistance in triple negative breast cancer to tackling pharmacotherapy related misinformation and strengthening the healthcare workforce. He has supervised dozens of postgraduate students, contributed to healthcare curriculum development, and in 2025 served at the World Health Organization headquarters, contributing to health workforce education and development. But today, we want to go beyond the publications, research, and accolades and meet Werner, the person behind the professor. Prof Cordier, welcome to Behind the Scrubs Couch.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, Prof, before we get into serious stuff, we need to find out who you are when there are no students, research papers, or meetings around. So, the first question I'm going to ask is, if we opened your fridge right now, what would we definitely find?
Uh, a tricky question. So, myself and my husband prepare all our food on a Sunday. So, by Monday, Tuesday, it is stocked with all of our meals for the week. So, we eat a lot of chicken. So, there's anything
Okay.
from an Asian chicken hot pot to a beef stir fry to, geez, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, although we don't get to all the veggies as much as we should. But yeah, just trying to live as healthy as possible while reducing the amount of effort.
Okay, no, that's great. And if you were given a plane ticket and told, Prof, leave tonight, where would you go?
Japan, most certainly. I've been obsessed with Japan since I've been a kid, so it's my dream to go to all of the various sites, such as Tokyo, visit some of the torii, all of that. No, it's one of my dreams. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do it yet.
But it will definitely happen very, very soon.
Eventually.
Yeah. And what song can completely change your mood after a difficult day?
Ooh, I'm a big lover of alternative and hard rock, so I've got a very eclectic playlist. These days, I like
Mm,
Bring Me the Horizon quite a lot,
mm,
and the old versions of Linkin Park I still love quite deeply. So yeah,
mm,
those are some of my go-tos, if I can put it that way.
Okay. And if your students could give you a nickname behind your back, what do you think it would be?
I'm sure there are many nicknames already. Uh, I've been called pedantic by
Okay.
some, not in a bad way
Mm,
at least. It's just my eye for
mm,
detail. Um,
okay.
yeah, I think that would be a good one to stand out. I do have some other
Mm,
odd nicknames which I could probably not share too broadly
mm,
unless they stick.
mm. Okay. And what's one thing you spend your money on without feeling guilty?
Um, well, I tend to buy a lot of random knickknacks. I mean, if you check my office here behind me, there's a little bit of plants everywhere. There's some random skeletons and plushies and stupid things like that. Yeah, I like making my
Mm,
my space my own, just to kind of keep my head calm.
okay.
So probably knickknacks, and then
Mm.
games. I'm an avid PlayStation gamer, so if it's a good game, I don't regret spending quite a bit of money on it.
Okay. All right. So, would you rather have a completely quiet weekend or one filled with family and friends?
So I'm an introvert, so I would probably lean more towards the quiet weekend. Um, though these days, as I'm getting older, time with friends and family has become equally important. So I think it's dictated by how tough the week has been. Uh, I
Mm.
can fall very much in my comfort zone and just stay at home. Uh, Luckily, my husband's the extrovert, so he kind of also challenges me to be a little bit more social, which naturally does bring in a whole different level of joy to me as well.
Mm, okay. And what is something you've always wanted to learn that has absolutely nothing to do with science?
Uh, I'm not a musician in any way, but I wish I was. So I would love to play
Mm.
the guitar, saxophone, drums. That would be a dream of mine, and hopefully one day in the future, when I'm older, I'll still be able to do so. But yeah, unfortunately, not at the moment.
Okay. And if you could invite three people, living or deceased, to dinner, who would make it to the guest list?
That is a tough question. Um, I read quite a bit as well. So there's an author called Douglas Adams who wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. Then there's also Terry Pratchett who wrote the Discworld series. I would love to just sit with them and figure out what was going on in their brains when they wrote those masterpieces. They are phenomenal. And I often feel it's the authors that really challenge your perception of the world that have the greatest insights and things that you're not aware of. The third person,
Mm.
um, I'm not actually sure. I should probably say a great altruist or a notable historical figure, but none come to my mind at the moment.
Okay, all right. So now, Professor, before we talk about Professor Cordier, take us back to Werner growing up. What kind of a child were you? How was your upbringing?
So I grew up as a bit of a military brat. My dad was in the army, so I mean we moved around quite a bit. So up until pretty much my early primary school, I was shifted around here and there until we kind of settled on Pretoria after the Cape. I was a bit of an awkward child. I'm a social introvert, so at the best of times, it takes a lot of energy for me to switch on. When I was younger, I was less adept at it. So I would spend a lot of my time kind of in my own world. I used to write a lot of stories. I used to play a lot of video games, read a lot of books, watch a lot of cartoons and stuff like that. Um, the friends that I had, very good friends, we used to have these wonderful make believe sessions as well, where we, were knights and cowboys and robbers and the whole shooting match. So I had a bit of a basic upbringing, if I can say it like that. I don't think there was anything very unique to it. But I was incredibly lucky that my mother was a stay-at-home mother at that stage. So she had a very broad interest in our upbringing, and she made me fall in love with learning. She used to, uh, take us for trips and use us to help her bake. She would always have these old school games that were educational games that she used to teach me and my sister. So it really just brought in a love of learning, a love of reading, and various things like that. My father, on the other hand, was obviously a little bit busier being in the military, but he had a very sensible value system towards it. So, I mean, I gained a lot of insights from my father about professionalism, about some of the nuances about how bureaucratic systems work, how to engage with people in a way that is respectful towards them, not just in terms of title, but also in terms of the actual humanity. So I'm very, very lucky about that. And I mean, I had a sister, she's older than me by 6 years, and we share a lot of personality elements, but she is a socially conscious person of note. So while I was growing up, she was this wonderful person on the ground that could also moderate how I was developing as a person. If she saw things that, just due to your peer environment that wasn't really becoming start to penetrate your being, she would be there as a good devil's advocate to kind of give you a little bit of a verbal hand against the head about, this is right, this is wrong. So I had a very fantastic upbringing in that light, and I was very glad that although I didn't necessarily have the biggest friend group, I did have a very good friend group, and I think it also taught me very much how to um, spend time with myself and actually value time with myself, which I don't think everybody always has these days with the chaos that is around the world.
Mm, mm. No, that's actually true because there's just a lot going on, social media, so many distractions, and people, these days they find it, they hardly spend time with themselves, such that
Yeah,
you may find out that you don't even know yourself because you are
exactly.
always busy. There's so much noise, and yeah, that's an interesting one. So, was science always part of the plan, or did life take you in that direction unexpectedly?
Yeah, I've always had a curious mind, and there were things that I always enjoyed. So, science in general, science, chemistry, biology, physiology, physics to a certain degree, all of these things were stuff that I loved. When I was playing, I used to pretend that, I was making potions and concoctions for, some sort of fantasy world that I was in. I read an incredible amount of horror and sci-fi when I was young, so a lot of the good books that I had read also kind of brought science into it, which made me respect it very much from kind of the weird and wonderful state that it was. And I just became obsessed with a lot of the uncertainties in life. So it wasn't a surprise to anybody in my family that when I started talking about university, that all of my selections kind of veered into either the biological or the chemical sciences. I think there was a bit of an impression that I might be leaning towards computer science as well because I was such an avid gamer, but didn't necessarily go that route. Thought about the broad base of professions like being a veterinarian, a doctor, all of those things. A bit of a shameful secret, if I can put it that way, is that when I was younger, I wanted to be a cryptozoologist, which is
Mm.
the science of unknown animals. So I was dead set on going around the world and finding things like Bigfoot and the Yeti, even to the Congo
Mm.
from Mokele Mbembe. Luckily, my parents dissuaded me from that route.
Mm, okay, no, that's interesting. So, when you are at home, does Professor Cordier disappear completely? Who is Werner around the people closest to him, or you remind them that, remember, I'm a professor, I need to maintain a certain level of,
So,
Mm,
so what I always say to people is that a title is great on paper and for grants, but beyond that, it sometimes becomes a bit superfluous to me. I find that very often we get so fixated on the title and the qualifications of an individual that we forget that they are human and fallible. And at the end of the day, they are just as uncomfortable within certain circumstances as anybody else might be. So um, as a blanket, I understand the use of the title within certain sectors, but if not necessary, I would avoid it completely. Even with my students, um, I do let them know that, if you respect me as a person, you would respect me using a title or without a title. So I let them take the lead for it. Uh,
mm.
Outside of the academic sector, I'm pretty much exactly the same, although maybe some elements of my dark humor comes through a little bit more. and my weird and wonderful thoughts that I typically need to stay contained in my head. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. Um, I
Mm,
I don't like living a double life, if I can put it that way. I think the only thing I can say that I change often is, um, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert. So um, outside, I may be more quiet, though inside my working environment, I do realize that I need to be more vocal, be more of an advocate for things. So people generally assume that I am extroverted, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Okay. So your work requires enormous intellectual and emotional investment. Who are the people you turn to when you need encouragement normally?
Oh, um, one of my biggest points of call at the moment is my husband. He is a rock for me. Over the past, I would say, 10 years of my career, I am a bit of an over analyst, so I do tend to get in my head quite a bit. And during COVID, I had a bit of burnout. I've been struggling with some work-life balance issues over the past while. And he is a continuous soundboard for me in terms of not just in terms of where I should be careful in terms of things that he notices, but also to remind me that at the end of the day, you are going to not be here forever. So you need to enjoy what you have directly in front of you. So he is definitely one of those people. My family,
Mm,
um, very much. I mean, they are incredibly proud of me. They support me in all of the weird and wonderful things that I want to do. When something happens to me, they are some of the first people to post it on a social media platform or to give me a shout out on WhatsApp. So, I mean, they bring this wonderful level of uh, emotional support for me, and the same for my family-in-law. I mean, my friends surrounding me are incredible people within their own unique fields that don't always understand what I do, but you know, anything can happen and they would be proud of me and they would support me. They will also keep me very on the ground and humble, which I think is a very good support system to also have. And then my
mm,
colleagues. I mean, I've got wonderful people surrounding me. My head of department at the moment, Professor Natalie Shellac, when she stepped into our department a couple of years back, one of the first things she told me was that I don't see any of your qualifications behind you on your desk. So she motivated me to, be proud of what I've achieved and, surround myself with those elements to continuously remind me about the things that I have done in life that has gotten me to this point, which was a good growth curve for me because there is a level of not wanting to speak about your accolades or where you've come from to a degree, I think, within the community. Um, and then I have amazing mentors around me, people that have really made me grow as not only as an individual in a personal capacity, but also in terms of my profession. Amazing
mm,
people like Professor Diane Manning, Professor Peter de Tooy, Professor Jackie van Wyk, Prof Liz Wolfart, and I mean, so many more that, the list is, going to take this whole hour to go through. And I take my hat off to all of them for getting me to the stage. And probably then one of the most important cohorts, who generally I don't even know the names of, are my students. I I've been in a space where I've been very lucky to have incredible undergrad and postgraduate students. My undergraduate students make the job so much more enjoyable for me to see when the learning starts kicking in, or just the appreciation that they have for a session well conducted, the support that is often provided. Um, I had a bit of a heart kerfuffle earlier this year where I developed myocarditis, and as I went to the emergency room and to the cardiologist, I was greeted not only by one of my prior students as the emergency physician that had to treat
mm,
me, but then also by a physiotherapist and a cardiology technician, um,
mm,
and nurses that all came through, the University of Pretoria halls in some way or another. And it was just wonderful reconnecting with them downstream from where I would serve them. And all of that just gives me all the strength in the world.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And I like what you said about, I think it's your supervisor who taught you that you need to be proud of your achievement, because I feel like that is something that most doctors or healthcare professionals are struggling from. That is why, with some of the, doctors that were nominated, some of them couldn't even, accept the nomination because they felt like, no, whatever that I'm doing, I don't do it for recognition. No, 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 it's just a calling. But whereas you should own that achievement, it's yours, you've done it, you had sleepless nights, and it's okay to accept when someone says, you know what, we see you, we thank you for the good work that you are doing, because I mean, you are the one that is working hard anyway. So that is why it's important for maybe all healthcare professionals, not only in health, but even different, professions, when you've achieved something, for you to be proud and really own it, because it's not easy to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I think representation matters a lot within that space as well. There are so
Mm,
many young up and coming individuals that are developing such incredible strength that often come
mm,
from incredibly weird and wonderful backgrounds. And
mm,
those individuals coming after them, seeing that somebody in very similar context than me can, reach
mm,
certain echelons, I think it does help. I think representation within the space is important. Humility, obviously, as well, but I think we should
true.
be careful of not undermining our own achievements, because
Mm,
especially if you spend a large component of your week on these things, understanding that you're making a change in the world, whether or not it's small or large, it really does help, especially when the difficult times come across.
that's true. So, what is something your family has taught you that no university qualification ever could?
Uh, Values. That's one of the things I would say. Like I mentioned earlier, I come from a family that, um, my mother was there during our formative years quite a bit, taught us the joy of
Mm,
learning, the joy of um, playing while learning, the joy of just being together. A dad who, taught professionalism beyond reproach, and understanding the nuances of professionalism. That, for example, a title is only a title. It's the respect
mm,
you give towards a person, how to deal with uncomfortable truths within the world. And a sister, I mean, that once again, she was an incredibly powerful devil's advocate for me in terms of my growth and for realizing that, the world isn't binary. Um,
mm,
so those would be some of the most important things that my family has taught me. And especially as we've all grown older and my family has extended to, parents-in-law, um, they've also taught me the joys of seeing a completely different family unit. My family is a bit
mm,
more reserved. My parents-in-law maybe a little bit more extroverted, and seeing kind of that duality and balance come together is joyous. One thing I'll always hand to my mother-in-law, who sadly passed away a while back. When I was approaching doing a second doctorate, I was having this conversation with her that, it's probably going to bring in a couple of sleepless nights. And her opinion to me was, why should you care about that? Care about what's staring you at the face and what this can do for you and your competence down the line. And it's one of the
mm.
things that I would respect about my family unit is that level of support, even though, it's sometimes a little bit out there.
Yeah. No, you are really blessed, to have such a family, because I can imagine sometimes, one would feel like, no, now you want my child to be lonely because now you are going to your second
Yes,
doctorate.
very much.
Yeah, so but you are really blessed to have such a great and supportive family. So, Prof, of all the roles you occupy, be it researcher, professor, supervisor, leader, and educator, which one feels most connected to your purpose as a person?
I'd say an educator, which is a bit odd for me because while I was growing up, I never really thought that I would step into a space of being a lecturer, for example. Introvert once again, didn't always want to speak, although I was, quite good at it. Um, but it didn't fit my personality at all. And when I got permanently employed, I just fell in love with the scholarship of education, the science of it. Um, and I've realized that I'm quite good at it. I, I enjoy it. I love spending time on figuring out what's going wrong within the learning ecosystem, especially within the
Mm,
context of health. I love seeing how what you do within that environment and how you plan for it ultimately can help reduce our health burden that we face within the country. Love seeing that change that can happen when you take somebody that is going within the health sciences or health professions and they become change agents. They become advocates for stronger educational outcomes, for stronger practice. Um,
mm,
and that just resonates with me. I thoroughly enjoy my biological research. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy,
mm,
most aspects of my job apart from admin. But I
mm,
think I believe in a concept known as ikigai. Ikigai is where your vocation, your passion, and your work kind of overlaps entirely. This whole Venn diagram. And I believe I
mm,
was put on this earth to educate. I'm not going to win a
mm.
Nobel Prize, but one of my students somewhere down the line will do that because I will be a good educator for them, and I'm very, very happy to take that badge.
Okay, that's amazing. And you've supervised more than 50 postgraduate students. Do you remember the first student you supervised and how that experience shaped you?
Yes. So a large bracket of my students were honor students. So if I cast my mind back to that time, I was a master student, kind of stepping into this role of supporting as a co-supervisor. And I think there was a level of, if I think back to it, maybe an overzealousness of being involved,
Mm,
taking that person through each and every step, which, that
mm,
level of support is maybe great, but not also the best way to authentically learn something. Um, I think looking back, I may have also been sometimes a bit intimidating within that space, kind of assuming that people will understand the research world as well as I did
mm,
at that stage. And once again, I was a master's student, so I didn't understand a lot. That Dunning-Kruger
mm,
effect was very much in play at a portion of my life. Um, but I still remember the conversations we had, the shared frustrations because we were both still students. So yeah, it's
mm.
good recollections for the most part, at least.
Okay. So, is there a moment when you've watched one of your former students succeed and thought, you know what, this is why I do what I do and I love it?
A lot. No,
Mm,
there's been so many students, both undergraduate and postgraduate, that have come out the other side, and you kind of look at it and just say that this is amazing what they've achieved. A lot of
mm,
the undergraduate students that I teach are nurses, physiotherapists, and dietitians, and I've been in a privileged space sometimes to walk across their paths. Luckily, not always for a health reason, and just seeing that
mm,
they've established themselves within a government or a private institution, and are helping change healthcare there has been incredible. Postgraduate students, obviously, you get a little bit more of a intimate relationship with. You understand the complexities of their world and what changes with it. And there's been so many that have moved into a space where some are now overseas where they are researching further for some of their studies. There are those that have shifted research focus areas because of passions that I've helped instill in them. There are those that have become academics themselves and are now leading the next group of students. So no, there's so many examples that I can draw from of just incredibly talented people that have grown and established themselves as change agents. And I I can't wait for about 10 years down the line when I can, have a further discussion with them and see what they've now created within that pipeline and how they're paying it forward.
Yeah, I think the work that you are doing is really fulfilling because I can imagine the feeling when you see, one of your students, even on TV or whatever, excelling. It's such a very, very nice feeling. Now you make me wish I was a lecturer or an educator. So, Prof, you've achieved a lot academically, but what has been, one of your biggest, maybe professional disappointments or failures, if any, and what did it teach you?
Uh, trying to think now. There are a couple. um,
Mm,
I think I've been in a very good space over the past while where I've changed my mentality surrounding a lot of things, seeing that
mm,
everything in your pipeline, even if it's a failure, it does teach you something, which in itself becomes a success point. If you fail to learn from a failure, that is a big problem. I would say some of
mm,
the biggest things that if I could have done it differently, which hindsight is always 2020. Um, During COVID, I was the acting head of department for our Department of Pharmacology here, and it was naturally a very difficult time for everyone, our students, our colleagues, everybody. Um, I wish I had been more involved with each and every one of my colleagues at that stage. I was sometimes just also trying to survive and often forgetting that, a 5 minute check in a little bit more frequently could have
yeah.
changed the response. It could have opened up a discussion that would have been necessary. And unfortunately, we lost an individual during that time due to health reasons. And it came as such a sudden shock. And I think if we had been more in contact, we would have probably have seen some of the signs to at least prepare ourselves a lot better for it. Um, so that was one of those moments where it taught me a lot about leadership and how to approach communication or continuous communication. The
Mm,
other things that I would say, I've done two PhDs and both of them were riddled with delays for various reasons. Um, and you constantly feel like a failure when you don't meet that milestone, or you don't reach what you've set out to do and you've had to modify. Um, and that builds in an incredible amount of stress for you. And the the benefit for me in that space has been that it's also made me realize again how it must feel to be a student at an honors or a master's or a doctorate level. That
mm,
fear of speaking to your supervisor and saying, I don't have anything, or I am burnt out, or this or that. And I take from that the experience that you always need to be careful in your communication with your students, that they are struggling with an immense amount of pressure that you don't see. And a lot of that they are internalizing, and it's just creating a further complication for them. Um, so it is a failure, I would say, that I've taken long to finish some of these things. But once
mm.
again, I have reframed it so that I can grow from it and it doesn't become one of those things that weighs me down in the evenings, um, because I know in future I can do better with it.
Mm. That's true. And sometimes when we see all these, nice accolades and achievements, we think, it was easy. But
Apologies.
it's important for for us to know that, what, even the high professors, they have also gone through, difficult situations, especially academically. And it is, an encouragement to that student that is struggling or that feels like even quitting because it's not happening at the time that they wanted it to happen. Now they put themselves under pressure. But I think even with you, like you are saying, it also helps you in a way to understand what they are going through and
Mm.
be more patient with them. And, because I feel like sometimes it's not easy to understand what people are going through when you haven't gone through that.
Yeah.
And it's easy for you to want things, to go a certain way. You don't understand, but I finished at a record time, I did this and that. And sometimes you lack that maybe
Mm.
empathy, or sometimes you are not compassionate enough.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned, um, there's an incredible power dynamic between us and students. I mean, students
Mm,
look up to us. We obviously come with a certain level of hierarchy and respect with it. And obviously, they have an image of us and also fear sometimes about vocalizing some things. And one of the things that has benefited me quite a lot within the past couple of years is being open about the challenges within my world. The fact
mm,
that, I've burnt out several times.
mm,
I've had those
mm,
moments where I've sat in my office looking at the screen and just become paralytic with, I just cannot look at another email or I cannot open
mm,
another article to read. Being open
mm,
about the complexities of mental health, the complexities of work-life and balance, it's allowed me at least to be more accountable towards myself, but also to showcase to students that just because, for example, the professors and lecturers within our department are publishing, a manuscript every couple of months, and they go
mm,
into a conference and a this and a that, and everything's very rose-colored. It doesn't mean that they are struggling with very similar things than they are, just in a different context. And being
mm.
open about
Sure.
that, I must say, has allowed me to develop a much stronger understanding of my students, but also
Mm,
sometimes open them up to speaking to me about things that they are really struggling with, which I may not be the perfect person to approach and deal with, but at least I can then help refer them to the right person or to different support systems. And sometimes just being
mm,
able to vocalize those stresses and understand that, as a second year MSc student, this is normal. This is a normal stressor that happens. It shouldn't happen necessarily, but it's there. And because there's such a large amount of individuals struggling with this, there is a support system. There's a peer network that can be drawn from, and you don't need to suffer in silence. Um,
mm.
and I think that's why, once again, why I think it's so important for us to grow through our failures and be open about our failures.
Mm, mm. That's true because, I always say, as educators, you are trusted with, people's future, and you can either make or break a person as an educator, as an educator, because God has trusted you with so much. You have
Yeah,
so much power to either break or make a person. So, and
very much.
I'm so glad that, we have people like you who are able to be open with their students, because sometimes some of the lecturers, they pretend as if, everything was fine with them. It was a straight line. They never struggled with anything. So that is why they don't understand why you're struggling. It means you are not studying enough. Whereas there is so much. So thank you so much that you are one of those lecturers that are able to have that, heart to heart conversation with your students, because that's where they get motivation and growth. Yeah. So, what scientific breakthrough would you love to see happen during your lifetime?
Ooh, so many. Uh, so I think within the biological space, I'm a cancer researcher in the lab. One of the things that I hope to see within the future is more targeted therapies coming out. Um, I've
Mm,
I've had two familial situations of cancer within the past 6 years, So once again, it kind of just reaffirms the passion that I have for it, and the hope that one day I'll be a cog within the greater machine of helping out with this discussion. But if we can get to a point where we have more targeted therapies with a much lower adverse effects burden that promote a much better therapeutic effect without putting people in the bed for weeks and weeks on end, making them lose all their hair, getting all of these horrible gastrointestinal side effects, organ difficulties, and so forth. That would be an immense thing that I hope to see. And if I look at the research, there's such an incredible amount of development within that space that it's one of those watch these space moments. Within the next decade or two, I think it's going to grow so exponentially with the way data science and artificial intelligence is kind of entering the game. From the education
Mm,
side, I think the next breakthrough that I would want to see there is how can we properly create authentic learning. I think we speak a lot about it, and there's these pockets of excellence throughout. But I think as a world, we've just become so disjointed at times between basic education, higher education, and the real world experience that we're sometimes training people for a job that technically isn't really there anymore or not within the frame that they see it. And it would be phenomenal to see how we can, as a community, start changing the educational landscape and flipping it on its head to really promote high quality, authentic learning, because that's the only way we're going to combat all of the misinformation, all of the new diseases that are being picked up, the problem of globalization and pandemics and so forth. So yeah,
mm,
that I would say would be the big things for me.
mm, mm. And if you were given the opportunity to redesign healthcare education in South Africa from scratch, what is one thing you would definitely change?
Ooh, asking me a difficult one. Yeah, I hope that the senior people don't hear. Um, I don't know. It's a difficult one to only change something. I think education in itself is so interleaved with everything that it's difficult to really change one element without it just being a bandage on a wound that isn't really healing. I would say that if we can change something about healthcare education, it would be re-looking at what is our goal at the end of the day. Are we looking for massification of health professionals and health scientists? So just increasing the quantity of numbers, but assuming the quality will be just as high in parallel? Or are we going to really investigate the shape of the health and care workforce that we need for our country and modifying the educational programs to align to it better? So destabilizing and disrupting that whole space to figure out, do we really need such a vast quantity of medical doctors, such a vast quantity of nurses? Should we reinvestigate how these distributions are actually set up? Should we reinvestigate what is actually going on the ground? How our country can actually support um, any of these placements? Because the whole health labor market in itself is in turmoil at this moment, and education is merely one component of it. I sometimes think that one of the core wicked problems we're facing is that we're trying to plug issues within the healthcare system just by creating more and more people and not
Mm,
necessarily dealing with what they need on the ground, what is going to be needed there to keep them there in the future, motivate them, recognize them, and allow them to do a good quality of service.
mm, mm. No, that's true. And Prof, congratulations on your nomination for the 2026 African Health Excellence Awards. Tell us
Thank you.
about the moment you heard the news that someone out there noticed the work that you are doing and said, you know what, Prof Werner deserves this one. I'm nominating him. Could be your students. I don't know who nominated you, but yeah, it could be your student or your colleagues. But just, tell us about the moment you heard the news that someone really applauds the work that you are doing.
So when I received the email, was a bit surprised and maybe a bit paranoid. So the first thing I did was actually Google. and see whether or not this wasn't spam or a phishing
Yes.
issue.
Mm.
I did have this
Mm.
moment of, I'm not sure if this is meant for me. But
Yeah.
when I kind of realized that, that this is a real nomination, kind of blew my mind a bit. I still, to this day, don't know who was the person that nominated me. I
Mm.
wish I could thank them properly, though, because it's an amazing level of recognition to be nominated for something like this, and um, it did, in my mind, once again say that what I'm doing is making an impact. I think within the
Mm.
educational space, often we struggle with the concept of impact because the easiest thing that we can monitor at an impact level is the student graduating and are they graduating with good marks at kind of the micro
Mm.
level. But the
Mm.
downstream impact of whether or not they're making a change within their behavior, whether or not they're making a change within the healthcare sector is often something ethereal to us. Um,
Mm.
so it just reaffirmed once again in my mind that, whatever I'm doing on the ground is helping somebody. And it
Mm.
motivated me just to kind of continue with that. And one of the big things for me the past while has been advocating for more people becoming better educators. So it reaffirmed once again that, the world isn't going to change if you don't become a change agent yourself.
Mm.
So no, it was an incredible moment, and celebrated with
Mm.
a lovely glass of wine afterwards.
And who immediately came to mind when you received this nomination, especially after checking to find out whether it's a scam or not, when you found that, okay, this is really.
Well, the first person in my head that I thought may have nominated me is a good colleague. He was at the University of the Free State and since then has moved to the World Health Organization's Afro branch, Professor Champion Nyoni. He's my brother from another mother. I mean, we are partners in crime and so many different things. And he's been one of those
Mm.
mentors to me about becoming a better educator and really wanting to make a change and an impact in the world. So he was the first person that I thought may have done so. Apparently, it wasn't.
Mm. Mm.
But it was certainly something that I shared with him, and we had a good kind of celebration about it.
Mm. No, that's great. And why do you believe platforms like the African Health Excellence Awards are so important for healthcare professionals across Africa?
I think we're living in a very difficult space of there's a lot of pressure placed on the health and care workforce.
Mm.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a thankless job, but to a large degree, it sometimes does become that way. Um, and I'm
Mm.
now speaking about clinical professionals. They sit in a
Mm.
space where they have to deal with whatever the world throws them at any beck and call. They're sitting with pandemics and epidemics that are growing. They're sitting with misinformation that has spread into the world where they have to sift through what can be true or untrue, and then also dealing with patients that have that same level of difficulty in always understanding the information or what to believe. The whole infodemic space is such a problem. And I think having platforms that recognize that they are doing a good job, even when a week has been incredibly difficult and horrible and they've lost patience or they've sat with situations where they've been uncertain, sometimes going home and not understanding why should I be doing this if my day to day is just one rigmarole after another. I think platforms that recognize their expertise, the good work that they're doing, I think that helps a lot. And I think often, as much as we speak about respecting the health and care workforce, I think on the ground, that respect is not always there. And I think you have to sift
Mm.
through a lot of bad elements to sometimes see those sparks of joy within it. And I think for the people that educate them and that support them in all of their various sectors, um, it's a similar issue. There's a lot of times when you're struggling with burnout, with imbalance in your work life.
Mm.
During my myocarditis earlier this year, I posted on LinkedIn my experience with now being off for 2 weeks and the reasons why I suddenly was in the hospital again, and the amount of people from different faculties and institutions that contacted me saying that this is exactly what they're going through, once again just shows
mm,
me that we're all fighting a very similar battle. Um,
mm,
and having a platform that acknowledges that you are doing a good job and please continue doing so, I think that changes the landscape dramatically. So I would say it's an immense responsibility that you also have to promote the excellence that we have within the African space within healthcare.
mm. That's true. And also because, usually, Prof, when you see a healthcare professional trending on social media, it's usually due to bad publicity.
Yeah,
So that is why the organization created this platform to share the good stories that are happening in the health sector, because there are quite a lot. Having a conversation with you, I learned so much about, the way you are teaching your students and the love that you have for them. So, and these are the stories that, they won't trend on social media. But if they were to say, Prof. Cordier was found doing one, two, three, within 5 minutes, it will be all over
really.
social media. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, we hope, this is an encouragement to each and every, healthcare professional, whether in the academic space, as a clinician, or wherever, that, what, they are doing a great job. And I mean, without them, our health, or health of the public, will be affected. And there are so many diseases out there; they just go through a lot.
Yeah.
So, but what legacy do you hope to leave in the academic space, especially for African healthcare?
So my big plan, if I can put it that way, is to kind of start stepping into more leadership spaces, becoming a deputy dean of teaching and learning, maybe a vice principal academic, working specifically within the academic education space. And what I want to change there is a better capacitation of our faculty to do a proper educational job. I think our systems are sometimes built around subject matter expertise and not necessarily always about how to properly educate somebody. And the complexity of that is that we're not always measured based on our performance within education, but rather within research. So if I can leave a legacy behind, it would be to disrupt that narrative, to create an educational system that really prides itself on high quality education and supports educators to be the best that they can be. And it won't be everyone. Not everybody wants to be an educator. Not everybody has necessarily the faculty for it, which is
Mm,
100% fine. We have
mm,
researchers that are amazing researchers and that are changing the world. And every classroom they step into, they can be a motivation, but it takes them away from doing their passion, their research. But I think if we can better normalize that space, it would be something fantastic to see in future. So if I can be a cog within that system and eventually change it, that would be a joy for me.
okay. And what is one thing you hope your students remember about you long after they've forgotten what you taught them in pharmacology?
It, realistically, well, hopefully, I think what I would want them to remember me by is that they had a good learning experience, that they learned something and that I contributed to it. Realistically, I think what they will remember is probably some of the odd stories that I've told in classes about um, just the weird and wonderful things that float around in my head. Uh,
Mm,
so a little bit of a mix of both. To change
mm,
that, I hope that they remember that I was a human, that I was just a
mm.
person that supported them and they.
Wow, that's powerful. Sure. Yeah, time flies when we are having fun, because I'm having so much fun, learning from you. And yeah, this is really, really a great conversation. Prof. Cordier, thank you so much for joining us on Behind the Scrubs Couch. Today, you've reminded us that behind every research, paper, lecture, and scientific discovery is ultimately a very human purpose to improve life. There is a human being behind all this. Thank you so much. We
Thanks a
hope
lot,
you
Sylvia.
also enjoyed being with us.
It was incredible, and thank you for the challenging questions. But no, Sylvia, it's been
Mm.
lovely, and thanks again for the great work that you and your team are doing.
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the work you are doing to develop future healthcare professionals, advance cancer research, and help us navigate an era where misinformation can sometimes travel faster than science. So, yeah, we are learning a lot from you, and we are looking forward, Prof, to seeing you on the 14th of November in your tuxedo with your husband. I'm looking forward to meeting him, and I believe you will be with him, right?
Yes, definitely.
Mm. All right. No, thank you so much. And to everyone watching, remember before you believe, share, or act on health information you see online, ask questions and verify the source. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And join us again on Behind the Scrubs Couch, real stories, expert voices, correcting health misinformation, one conversation at a time. Till then, stay blessed. Thank you.
Bye bye. Cheers.